We're going to explore today and in the rest of our series how individually and collectively we can live fuller lives from the wholeness that is at our center. Okay, so I thought a good place to start as we begin this series was with the story of Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore. I love this story. And we're talking about wholeness and healing, so where else better to start? Myrtle Fillmore, I'm sure you know her story. She was forced by circumstances to find that whole center, that wholeness center, and live from it if she was indeed going to live at all. She was diagnosed with tuberculosis. She was born in 1845, so when she was diagnosed with tuberculosis, at that point, it was seen as an incurable disease. And she had other diseases. She had stomach problems. She had other physical ailments. She had a genetic line of physical difficulties. Her father had been very sick, and she was told that she was going to die young. It was just a fact. She was told that she was not going to make it very long, and she just needed to get used to the idea, and that her decline was inevitable. In her letters, she described herself at that point in her life, before she started her healing journey, as an emaciated little woman. Just imagine that. You've seen the pictures of her later. She's anything but an emaciated little woman. As a matter of fact, she lived to the age of 86 and was fairly robust her whole life. However, before she started on this healing journey, when she was about 41, a Christian Science practitioner from Chicago, a guy named Dr. E.B. Weeks, was presenting a series of lectures in Kansas City, and she went. And her life just changed. She heard this new philosophy of mental renewal, of conscious transformation. And she left the lecture with the realization, she wrote, "I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness." I love that. I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. She wrote, "There is nothing in human language able to express the vastness of my possibilities as they unrolled before me." Just imagine what was going on in her mind as they unrolled before me. The physical claims that had been considered such a serious nature faded away before the dawning of this new consciousness. I found that my body temple had been literally transformed through the renewing of my mind. In another letter she wrote, "It was such a wonderful time for me when I awakened to the truth that God is my Father and that I inherit from Him only that which is good." I cannot imagine the transformation this woman underwent from thinking that she was going to die young to listening to this lecture to having this massive new realization. So what did she do? She began believing and thinking differently. She just changed the way she thought and believed. She refused to accept as true any longer the idea she was ill and that she was going to soon die. She just put it aside. She began to, as she called it, teach her body. She started communicating with her body, teaching her body that it was well and vibrant and alive, even though everyone else was telling her something different. She focused on her liver, and she told it that it was full of vigor and energy. She told her stomach it was vibrant, intelligent, and alive. She wrote, "I went to all the life centers of my body and spoke words of truth to them, words of strength and power. I asked their forgiveness for the foolish, ignorant course I had pursued in the past, when I condemned them and called them weak, inefficient, and diseased." Think about that. "I did not become discouraged at their being slow to wake up, but I kept right on, both silently and aloud, declaring words of truth until the organs responded." She began to teach others this transformative way of thinking, which had worked so well for her. She wrote later that when someone would come to her with a doctor's diagnosis of an illness, you know, "I'm here, I'm sick, I have this disease here, it's written on a piece of paper," she would ask him or her to just turn away from that diagnosis, to turn away from the doctor's opinion, to stop focusing on what she regarded as an effect with an E. She said the doctors trafficked in effects, not in truth. She asked the person to stop focusing on that word, on that scary diagnosis. She would say, reject the common wisdom that the diagnosis was unchangeable. She wrote, just as one would refuse to hold on to or think of some unworthy and untrue thing that you heard on the street. That's not true. I'm not going to listen to that. She wrote, he is to begin at once to rejoice that he is the offspring of God, that the life and the substance of his body and the perfect pattern of that life and body are gifts of God. gifts that are in reality inseparably one with his own being. The very essence of God life and God's substance and God intelligence. She taught that we must see the life of God in our flesh. Think about that. We must see the life of God in our flesh. Now, when I go out and I look at the media, what I see a culture of body shaming, right? I see a culture of people who are supposed to be perfect. If you don't look like something out of an Atlanta fitness ad, there's something wrong with you. How many of us out there are celebrating the life of God in our bodies? What a paradigm shift. So her story is legend in New Thought, and she recovered and went on to live for another 45 years, always teaching about the ability that we have in faith to access this healing energy that turns us around. It originates in the power we call God, but which we can call by many names. Okay, so Charles was there during all this, but Charles was doing something else. And then as Charles saw her continuing to practice this and get better and stronger and more vibrant, Charles was like, whoa, what is going on here? So he started to pay attention. And then he turned into more of the front man, the writer, the thinker, the theoretician. But it started with Myrtle coming to this inner transformation that her life could be different. So Myrtle Fillmore and those who came after her taught that whether we know it or not, whether we feel it or not, whether we believe it or not, we exist in a healing stream of wholeness and life. We can't remove ourselves from it any more than we can stop the stream from flowing. It surrounds us, sustains us, encompasses us, and invites us to wholeness and health. Eric Butterworth, in his book, In the Flow of Life, describes this healing stream as an eternal reality. The whole universe is within you, and its flow is ever the reality of you in a fundamental sense, no matter what the incidentals may be. Do you remember that phrase we spoke about a while back, that God is a sphere with a center everywhere and a circumference nowhere? What does that mean? It means the whole universe is centered in you. The whole vitality and health and power of the universe is centered in me and you and all of us and everywhere. That is a wonderful bank upon which we can draw for vitality and life and healing. The healing stream is constant. It does not arise only when you notice it or when you wake up and affirm that it's true. It's just true like gravity. How many of us have to choose in the morning that gravity is going to work? Not any of us. We just get up and it works. There you are. You know, wham. I mean, you can't just wish it away. You can't, I don't believe in gravity anymore, and all of a sudden I'm up at the ceiling. That's not how it works. It just works. The creative power of the universe expresses as us, and health is our natural state. That is a revolutionary thought. How many of us think, or how many people you know, think that health is your natural state? Most people I know think that you're born and you immediately start declining. But health is where we are meant to be, consciously and vibrantly and physically. The healing stream is an eternal reality. We are surrounded by it and carried along in it. When we become aware of this truth, we can align our consciousness with it. We can know it's happening, and it lifts us up with energy and joy and vitality when we make a point of staying in alignment with that truth. So Myrtle Fillmore declared words of strength and truth, and then she acted on them. She also said that prayer is not enough. I always had this image of Myrtle Fillmore like sitting in her room just praying all day long. I was very proud. She teaches that prayer is not enough. You must internalize it. You must think of God, whom she called the all-powerful healer, as already being in every part of you, already there. Whether you feel it or not, you are grateful for it before you know that it has taken effect. When you internalize that knowledge and you live from that truth, your life changes. Just think about it. When you realize that you are walking along in what she called a body temple, what do? You treat it differently, don't you? You eat better, you sleep more, you exercise more. You just co-create in a much more productive and loving way with this wonderful body that we have. You look at your body as the wonderful gift that it is, constantly alive and growing and creating health in every cell and every organ. So living in this energy, actually getting up every day and living in this energy, is the difference, I think, than knowing about truth and knowing truth. If I know about truth, it's like I'm carting around a whole bunch of books. I can read all day long, I can quote wisdom teachers, I can, do whatever, I can spout off about all the stuff I've read. But when a crisis hits and I'm alone and scared in the dark, what is it I do? That is when the rubber hits the road about what I know. Not what I know about, what I know. What I have internalized, what I believe, what I think will see me through. That's the difference between knowing about truth and knowing truth. Teachers can only tell us what truth looks like for them. I cannot teach you your truth. That is an inside job for each of us. I can show you what it looked like for me. I can even read to you what it looked like for these other people, and we can do that for each other. But this is a job, each of us, a journey each of us must take for him or herself before we can realize and comprehend and live that internal truth. When you live from this truth, as it feels to you, as it appears to you, as it animates for you, you keep those channels to spirit open. As I was researching this, I came across Ohm's Law. Okay, when I was in the Navy, I was an electrician, so this is goober time. Ohm's Law, right? Ohm's Law teaches, in short, that the amount of power available at the point of use, meaning how you express, is equal to the amount of power at the source, meaning God, and the resistance in the channel, right? That source is vibrant, it's humming, it's available. I am the point of them in the back there laughing like, oh my God, another electrical analogy. What we are trying to do is keep that channel open. We are trying to keep the resistance low so that the power at the point of use, which is me, is as close as possible to the power at the source. Because I don't want to get in my way. We do not want to get in our way. We want to be able to express as who we came here to be. We want to be able to express fully the light that we are meant to shine. And that's the electrical lesson for the day. When you live from this truth, you keep those channels open. You keep your resistance low. You declare your willingness for the healing power of the universal creative mind to work in you. You live in the knowledge that you are, as Eric Butterworth wrote, in the ceaseless flow of transcendental life. In the ceaseless flow of transcendent life. How many of us got up this morning and said, I feel like I am in the ceaseless flow of transcendent life? Wouldn't our day be changed if we could do that? And just jump into the day with that knowledge? It's true. What is it Thomas Merton said? If we could only know that we are all walking around shining like the sun. We are. We just need to be able to realize it, to breathe, just to sit and breathe in that knowledge. And walk out of here knowing that is true. Whatever life is doing to us, whatever is being shown to us, we say yes to the gift that is ours. So, the title of this talk is called Inheriting Wholeness, because Myrtle said, I do not inherit sickness. But what do we know about inheritances? An inheritance is a gift. It's a gift freely given. I can use it to my benefit, or I can waste it. I can ignore it, I can squander it, I can throw it away. I can use this inheritance for my good, or I can let my fear and my doubt and my judgment and my smallness just waste it. It is a choice that we all have. So how do we take this inheritance and use it for our good? First off, we celebrate this gift. Regardless of the circumstances surrounding us, we don't focus on illness, we focus on wholeness. We move toward health, and we do not waste our time resisting illness. I know you see the difference. We look at the truth inside us, which is that we are whole and well, and that is where we put our view. We move toward life. As I was researching this talk, I came across a story from a guy named Dr. Richard Bartlett, who wrote a book called Matrix Energetics. And what he does is he teaches how you use your own creative power to transform and heal. So he tells of the time he was learning to ride a motorcycle. Okay, and when you learn to ride a motorcycle, I'm not allowed to buy a motorcycle, but that's another talk. You have those figure eights that you go through, right? Those orange cones. And as he was going through these figure eights, he kept piling up on the cones. And he realized it's because he kept looking at the cones. And he was not looking at the right thing, so he decided, I'm not going to look at the cones. He said, I'm going to look at the road. And he didn't hit any more cones because he was focused on where he wanted to go. And what did he learn? He wrote, don't look where you don't want to go. Right? Okay, how simple is that? Don't look where you don't want to go. So think about this in your own life. How often do we focus on what we want to avoid instead of where we want to end up? I challenge us to change our thinking to focus to where we want to end up. We're going to get there a lot sooner because we're seeing it. That's where I want to go, as opposed to, I'm scared of going that way. Guess where you're looking? You're heading that way. So let's keep our minds focused on where we want to go. Now, sometimes when we're faced with a serious diagnosis or an accident or a natural disaster or a tragedy or something, this is a difficult principle to follow because we have to kind of get through the shock of what has just happened. And that's okay, we do that, and we help each other through that. This is not an immediate thing. We don't get in trouble for not feeling sunny the minute something horrible has happened, right? We have to feel the emotions. But then we need to realize we have a choice. We are not victims, we are co-creators. And we have a choice as to how we are going to see this. There is a difference between focusing on what we want to claim rather than what we fear. One is a positive wellspring of vitality and health, and the other is just a quagmire. It's just a hole that we really find it very difficult to get out of. It's a void that swallows us up. We hunt anxiously for health while consciously affirming that we are sick. That is not a recipe for success. How much better is it to affirm that our truth is wholeness and health? It's just a different energy. So, for me, these principles are true, and I find that my life is better when I use them. But I do have a bit of an issue because I've also seen them used in other ways. We need to be careful to not turn this into dogma with instructions and judgments and you're not doing it right. This is not a contest where everybody needs to measure up and always look at ourselves and see if we're doing it right. How many people have we heard when they get sick, somebody says, oh my gosh, what were you thinking? Or they tell themselves, I was attracting this to me, that's why I got X. No, that is what they call metaphysical malpractice, which is not a phrase that I coined, but I like it. It's metaphysical malpractice. It's not a one-to-one. Let's put it this way. If I insist on thinking that if I think a positive thought, I am going to be guaranteed physical health, that's not faith, that's not mystery, that's not grace, that's a business deal. Isn't it? I'm going to think this for you and you better deliver. That's a transaction. There is more mystery in life, in healing, in health and wholeness than that. If we contract a disease and we do not recover, it doesn't mean we did anything wrong or that we have failed to remain in the flow of universal love and power. We all die. We all decline and we all get sick. We decline if we're lucky enough to live that long, right? We've all seen instances of people who are loving, authentic, connected, wonderful people who get sick and die. We've all seen young people die for no reason at all. My mother's joke was always, only the good die young. She said it a lot, and she thought it was funny. But we've seen that happen. We've seen people who are young and vibrant with little kids and everything to live for just get sick and die. And it is not because they weren't thinking right. That's not how it works. And I don't think that's what these teachers are telling us. And I got to tell you, this has been my beef with New Thought. But it's not what these teachers are telling us. And sometimes it's hard to discern that. Because sometimes it sounds like that's just what they're teaching us. For example, in Healing Letters, Myrtle Fillmore wrote, we know very well that God would not create a person with imperfections and shortcomings and disease. I read that, and it kind of pulled me up short. Because I know that there are people who are born with serious physical ailments. There are people who develop serious physical ailments. So that can't be what she meant. She must have meant something else about wholeness. In a later letter she wrote, after all, it is not the physical and mental relief that means most to the persons receiving treatment. And we are not so much concerned with the results as we are with the growth in consciousness that will make the results abiding. I think what she was talking about was a growth in consciousness, a growth in love, a growth in connection. Now, are you healthier if you point toward health, if you seek health, if you say, I am going to be well? Yes. And am I saying that there are not instances in which people are healed? There are. Many people in this room have seen them. Many people watching have seen them. There are healings which take place which are not simple to explain. All I'm saying is that it's not as easy as saying, I'm going to think positive thoughts, I'm going to consciously affirm life, and I will always be healthy, I will always be well. It's not a one-on-one thing. Just think of it this way. We are biological beings, right? We are enmeshed in the biological fabric of our planet, along with every other carbon-based life form. As I was doing research for this talk, I learned that 99% of our DNA is shared with chimpanzees and bonobos. I think that's way cool. We are that closely related to other forms. But when they get sick, is it because they are thinking wrong? No, it's because we're biological life forms, because our cells are prone to mutation and decline and death. That's just the world in which we live. The other thing that Myrtle did is she treated death very lightly, because sometimes we tend to think of death as a failure, that it's the end result of wrong thinking or our inability to consciously pull life out of that universal connection. But this is what Myrtle said about death. She really regarded it as a next phase. She wrote, "You will learn that those who go through the change called death are passing through a transition, the soul giving up the body temple, which for some reason or other, it can no longer express through or bring into health. Your dear one has not gone away. He is abiding in the heart of the Father, and you have learned that the Father is omnipresent. So all his children are just where their consciousness draws and holds them, whether they are functioning in the physical or have temporarily laid aside the flesh body." It's just a phase. What she is talking about, and I think what other teachers are talking about, is wholeness is a consciousness. It's an awareness. It's a way of seeing our world and our connection to our world. Emily Cady wrote in Lessons in Truth that wholeness is the fundamental and ultimate reality of each person's being. It's a truth that doesn't change, no matter what the circumstances of our lives. Living from a consciousness of wholeness doesn't mean achieving physical perfection or even lifelong physical health. It is living our connection to God joyously through all the circumstances in our lives. We couldn't grow if we didn't have difficult circumstances in our lives. We couldn't connect with each other with compassion and love and kindness if we didn't have some challenges to work through. We are physical bodies that age and decline. And if we didn't, life on earth would be unsustainable. Think about it. There are people who need to come after me to eat this food and breathe this air and drink this water. I need to be here for a while, and then I need to move on to make room for other people who can use this space, who can use these resources, who can build on what I have done. That doesn't mean that we cannot continue to remain in a consciousness of love and connection and gratitude. We just need to be grateful for it. The mess, the chaos, the noise, everything about it. Because it's all here for our good, and it's all here for our greater unfolding. Regardless of the particulars in our lives, we remain in Spirit's healing stream of love and strength. And we live fuller and more joyous lives when we are aware of it. So what I hope, as we study these teachers moving forward, is that we're going to use these teachings to enliven us, to animate us, to help us grow, to make us more joyous, not to judge ourselves, not to look at how we are thinking or how we are not thinking and think we are falling short. There is a world of wisdom here that we can take and grow. I was reading an article for this talk, and one author said that New Thought really moves into New Thought 3.0, where we can make room for doubt, for mystery, for growth, for that factor of wonder and awe that teaches us maybe that there's more out there than wiring diagrams can show us. So that's what I think we are challenged to find in these teachers. I cannot always see over every horizon and answer each question. Easy answers are not always right answers, right? They're just not. They may be easy, but they're not always right. However, when we accept that we are all in the flow of spirit, it enables us to walk toward those horizons with hope and courage, no matter what they hold. Accepting the joy of living in the healing stream of universal energy doesn't mean we are free from sickness or aging or despair or loss. It does mean that wherever the stream takes us, it's a place that is safe for us to go. That when we go, we will be sustained and loved by spirit. And that, indeed, is a hopeful inheritance. Thank you.